I thought one dinner could fix things between me and Mom. I cooked, cleaned, and set the table, hoping she'd see I was trying. But what I overheard that night burned every piece of love I had left. My name is Emily Rhodes. I'm a school counselor in Ohio. I help teens untangle their pain, but I had no idea I'd soon drown in my own. The dinner invitation, when I finally picked up the phone, my hands were sweating. Mom's number blinked on the screen like an old scar that never healed. We hadn't spoken in months after another fight about Dad's things. I almost hung up, but instead I said a shaky hi. Her voice sounded different this time, lighter, almost cheerful. She said she was seeing someone new and wanted me to meet him. He's special, she said. I forced myself to sound supportive, even as something sharp twisted in my chest. We decided on Friday night dinner at my house. I spent half the week cleaning and cooking, making everything perfect. I told myself it was about peace, not guilt. But deep down, I wanted her to notice I was trying. I wanted her to love me the way she used to before Dad died. As I seasoned the roast, I played old songs that used to fill our kitchen. Sometimes I pretended she was right there beside me, laughing. But when I caught my reflection in the window, I saw only my own tired eyes. When the doorbell rang, I straightened my sweater and smiled at my own reflection. It felt like a performance. Mom walked in wearing a bright red dress I'd never seen before. Her perfume hit first, strong, new, expensive. A man stepped in behind her, smiling too wide. His hand stayed on her back too long. I'd imagined awkward silence, stiff smiles, maybe an apology or two. But I wasn't ready for the warmth in her eyes when she looked at him. It wasn't the kind of warmth she saved for family. "Emily," she said, "this is Kevin." He extended his hand, and I shook it slowly. His grip was firm but cold. Behind his smile was something watchful, calculating. "Nice to finally meet you," he said. Finally. The word lingered too long in my head, and just like that, dinner began, one that would end everything I thought I knew about my family. The missing photo frame. By Thursday night, everything looked perfect. The table shone under candlelight. The roast smelled just right. I wanted it to feel like a home again. But as I placed the napkins, my eyes caught the empty space on the mantel. Dad's photo, gone. I froze. That photo never moved. Dad in his blue work shirt, grinning next to me at the lake. I had watched Mom clean around it carefully after he died, never touching it, never dusting it too briskly. Now the only thing left was the faint outline where the frame had sat for years. "Mom must have packed it," I murmured. But even as I said it, I didn't believe myself. My stomach tightened. When they arrived, I asked lightly, "Hey, did you move Dad's photo when you came over last time?" She paused, just for a breath, then smiled too easily. "I thought it was time to take it down, honey. You need to let go." Her words slid across me like ice. Let go? That wasn't her voice. She used to sit for hours in front of that photo, crying quietly. Now she shrugged it off like it was a trinket. Kevin took a sip of wine and looked around the room slowly, his eyes studying everything, landing on every detail. Something in the way he scanned the space felt invasive, like he was measuring it. When they stepped into the kitchen for dessert, I glanced toward Mom's purse. It looked heavy, stuffed with papers. For a second, I thought about looking, but I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I stared at the empty place on the mantel. That missing frame bothered me more than I wanted to admit. Later that night, when I washed the dishes, the shadows in the kitchen stretched long and sharp across the floorboards. Every sound felt too loud. Something inside me whispered that peace was an illusion. When I went to bed, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing that empty space and hearing Mom's careless laugh echo in my ears. For the first time, I felt like the house itself was holding its breath. The man in the doorway, Friday, came fast. The early evening sun dipped low across the street, and I felt that nervous flutter I hadn't felt since high school plays. I told myself it was just dinner, just Mom. The doorbell rang. When I opened the door, Kevin stood there holding a bottle of wine. He looked too young for her, not by age, but by spirit. His smile was polished, and his grip on her hand was possessive. Mom's face glowed like someone reborn. "You look lovely, sweetheart," she said. She hadn't called me that in years. We all sat at the table, laughter too forced, clinking forks ringing like alarms. Mom complimented every bite, and Kevin told stories about work, vague things about projects and travel. Whenever I asked details, he brushed me off with charm, but something kept catching my eye. The way his gaze lingered when I looked away, the way he touched her hand, too confidently, too familiar. "Kevin, how did you two meet?" I asked. "At the wine tasting event," Mom answered too quickly. "You know the one near the park?" He smiled. "Your mother's an incredible woman." The compliment should have sounded kind, but his tone was heavy, almost rehearsed. When Mom went to the kitchen to get dessert, Kevin leaned back in his chair. "You have your father's eyes," he said, voice low. I froze, fork halfway to my mouth. "Did Mom tell you that?" He smiled faintly, swirling his wine. "Let's just say I noticed things." Before I could ask what that meant, Mom returned, cheerful and oblivious. I forced a smile again, choking down suspicion like it was something sour. After they left, I cleaned in silence. The wine glasses glittered under the soft kitchen light. I looked at their lipstick stains and thought how strange it was that happiness could look so much like deceit. When I went to blow out the candles, I caught my reflection again, my eyes wide, uncertain. Somehow, I knew the story wasn't ending with dessert. The whisper in the kitchen. The house smelled of roast and lies. I can still hear the ticking clock on the wall as I walked into the kitchen for more wine. Mom and Kevin's voices drifted in from the dining room, soft at first, playful, then quieter, suspiciously quiet. I paused behind the doorway, heart thudding. "She still doesn't know," Mom whispered. Kevin's reply was sharper, urgent. "She can't ever know, you promised." My fingers tightened around the wine bottle so hard it almost slipped. I froze, breath trapped in my throat. "What if she figures it out?" Mom said. "She won't," he muttered. "She thinks you're the saint who lost her husband. Keep it that way." I pressed myself against the wall. Dizzy, every word hit like a blow. Keep what that way? What couldn't I know? Mom's tone changed, trembling, small. "Sometimes I see him in her. It's like he's still here, watching." Kevin laughed softly. "Then you better hope he stays dead." Glass clinked. My stomach flipped. I felt the world tilt a little under my feet. When I walked back into the dining room, pretending I'd heard nothing, my voice cracked slightly as I said, "More wine?" Mom smiled, her face smooth, unreadable. But when I met Kevin's gaze, he looked right at me, something dangerous shimmering behind his polite grin. After they left, I stood alone in the quiet, staring at the half-empty bottle. I replayed their whispers again and again, trying to stitch meaning into them. She still doesn't know. What didn't I know? Midnight crept by as I lay awake. My mind kept circling the same question while my heart begged me to stop. By dawn, I already knew I wouldn't. The hidden drawer by morning, the house felt stiff and cold. The scent of their perfume and cologne still hung in the living room. I made coffee I didn't drink and stared at Mom's purse sitting on the counter. She'd forgotten it here. A small piece of paper stuck out from the zipper. I reached for it, telling myself I just wanted to return it later, but my hand didn't stop. Inside the purse were bills, lipstick, receipts, and a photo. A photo older than time. Dad stood in the middle, smiling, holding little me in one arm. On his other side stood Kevin, younger, but definitely him. His hand rested on Dad's shoulder like they were old friends. My heart slammed against my ribs. He wasn't new. He wasn't strange. He was from before. Memories rushed in, Dad working late, Mom's fights about that man at the shop. I'd been too young to understand. I turned the photo over. Faded ink across the back read, "Lakeside Picnic, 008, 2008, the same year Dad died." I couldn't breathe. The room tilted as my hands shook. I pressed the photo flat on the counter and whispered, "Why, Mom? Why him?" That night, I sat on the floor and pulled out an old shoebox from my closet, the one with Dad's things, his ring, his wallet, a few notes. I ran my fingers along the dried leather of his wallet, still faintly smelling like motor oil. Then I opened the folded obituary tucked inside. "Beloved husband, gone too soon." Gone too soon. It always sounded like half of a confession. When I looked back at the photo, the truth started to blur into something darker. I kept asking myself the same thing over and over. If they were connected back then, what else had they shared besides a photo? The old police report. Sleep refused to come. I sat in the attic, pulling out dusty boxes stacked since Dad's funeral. The air smelled of mold and silence. One box was marked "Car Accident, 2008. Mom never let me touch it before. My hands trembled as I pulled the lid off. Inside was a folded police report, yellowed and brittle. I switched on my flashlight and began reading. Victim, Robert Rhodes. Cause pain main means, hit and run. Vehicle, silver sedan. Driver, unknown. I read it 3 times until it blurred. Silver sedan, Mom had one. Still does. I leaned back, breath shaking. Dad's voice echoed in my head from years ago, warning, "Never let secrets rot in the dark, Emmy." My chest tightened. Had Mom? No, she couldn't have. But one word on the next page made my heart stop. Witness. Kevin Dale. The same Kevin. There it was. Ink faded, but clear as accusation. My stomach twisted. I flipped the page again, scanning the handwritten notes. No contact info past 2008. That meant he disappeared afterward. Until now. I wanted to scream, but the walls felt too close. It all snapped together like broken glass fitting back wrong. Kevin wasn't a new boyfriend. He was part of the accident. The one that took my father. Maybe even the reason it happened. That's why Mom could never let go of the photo. That's why she'd hidden it. When I put the papers back, my hands were slick with sweat. I felt sick, dizzy, old grief twisting into rage. My whole life had been shaped by lies whispered behind doors and accidents marked unsolved. The attic light flickered. I slammed the lid shut and whispered, "I'm going to find out, Dad. I promise." Downstairs, rain tapped the windows like fingers. Somewhere outside, a branch scraped the roof with the same rhythm as a heartbeat. I sat on the steps until dawn, holding the report, the truth pressing down on me like a weight I couldn't drop. By morning, I knew what I had to do. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't healing. It was justice. The confrontation. I drove to Mom's house with the police report on the passenger seat. Every stoplight felt like a countdown. The closer I got, the more pieces of my childhood blurred with anger. The porch swing Dad built, the mailbox he painted blue. Now it all looked fake. Mom opened the door in her robe, smiling like nothing had changed. "Emily, what a surprise!" I held up the envelope. "You know what this is?" Her face drained of color. She tried to laugh. "Emily, you shouldn't go digging through—" "Don't!" My voice came out sharp. "Kevin was there when Dad died. His name's in the report." She blinked slowly, lips parting but no words coming. Behind her, Kevin appeared, shirt unbuttoned halfway like he owned the house. He leaned in the doorway, smirking. "I told you she'd find it," he said quietly. "Shut up!" Mom snapped, but her eyes darted to me, pleading. "You killed Dad," I said. My voice shook. "Tell me why." Tears rimmed her eyes. "It was an accident. We argued that night. Robert and I drove to clear my head. Kevin showed up out of nowhere. We were talking in the car when—" Her breath hitched. "He stepped into the road. You hit him," I whispered. She nodded once, trembling. Kevin shrugged. "We called it in anonymously. Saved her reputation if you think about it." I turned on him. "You blackmailed her." He smiled, no denial in his eyes. "Everyone needs leverage, sweetheart." The room spun. The rug's floral pattern blurred under my tears. Mom reached for me, but I stepped back. "Don't touch me." "Emily, please," she sobbed. "He said he'd go to the police if I didn't—" "If you didn't what? Let him in your bed? In this house?" She broke down completely. Kevin just grinned. "Told you she was smart." I left before I could break. I drove home gripping the wheel like it was the only solid thing left in the world. Behind me, the small white house disappeared into darkness. By the time I pulled into my driveway, the plan had already begun writing itself in my head, the hidden recording. After the confrontation, I couldn't stop shaking. I needed proof, something no one could twist or deny. The next day, I texted Mom and said I wanted to talk again. She sounded relieved. "Dinner, my place?" she asked. I said yes. Before I left, I set my phone to record and slid it into my cardigan pocket. The house looked the same, but heavier somehow, shadows longer. Kevin greeted me at the door like we were family. "Glad you came," he said smoothly. Mom sat at the table, wringing a napkin between her hands. "I just want this over," I said. "Let's talk about Dad." Her eyes filled again. Kevin interrupted. "Careful what you say, darling. Words carry consequences." I let my gaze linger on her. "I already know, Mom. Everything. But I need you to say it. Just once." She shook her head. He stepped out too suddenly. It wasn't my fault. He called your name before he fell, Kevin muttered, smirk widening. My heart thudded, but I stayed silent. Mom's voice cracked. You swore no one would find out. Kevin leaned forward. You said the same thing. That was enough. I stayed a few minutes longer, pretending to make peace, until the tension thinned like a fragile thread ready to snap. Then I stood, hugged her stiffly, and left. Once outside, I sat in my car and hit play. Their voices filled the silence. Kevin's cold tone. You said no one would find out. Mom's reply, softer, defeated. She already has. My breath hitched. That single line sealed everything. I forwarded the recording to myself, saved it on my laptop, then deleted the original. It wasn't just evidence, it was power. For the first time in years, I felt in control. When I looked back at the house, the curtains twitched. A figure moved inside. Maybe Mom, maybe Kevin, maybe both. Either way, the past had run out of hiding places. Tomorrow something would end. I just hadn't decided yet who deserved the fire more, the night of fire. The night I chose burned slow. I bought a red gas can at the hardware store outside town where no one knew me. The clerk smiled politely, not asking why a woman in a gray jacket trembled as she paid cash. By sunset, fog rolled in, heavy and quiet. I parked near the old family house. The sky looked bruised purple as I stepped out, carrying the can. Inside, the air smelled like dust and perfume. Frames lined the hallway, memories trapped behind glass. I touched one of them, Dad holding me as a baby. Another, Mom smiling, arm around him, lies frozen forever. I whispered, Sorry, Dad. In the living room, the fake smiles and photographs watched as I poured gasoline along the rug, the curtains, the stair edges. The heavy silence felt almost grateful. When I reached the mantel, I paused. The missing frame sat there again. Mom must have put it back. His smiling face stared at me, forgiving when I couldn't forgive her. Footsteps sounded upstairs, a voice. Emily? Mom? I froze. She stepped halfway down the stairs, her face pale. What are you doing? Finishing it, I said. Please, she whispered. Don't. This won't bring him back. I know, I said quietly, striking the first match, but it will make sure he finally rests. Flame caught on the curtain, flaring bright. Mom screamed, running forward, but I stepped back toward the open door. Kevin burst from the hall, shouting curses. The fire spread fast, an orange storm against years of secrets. He grabbed Mom's arm. Smoke swallowed their figures as I stumbled outside, coughing. Behind me, the house glowed like a funeral pyre. Fire trucks would come, I knew. But some truths needed to be erased the only way lies were born, in darkness and heat. The photo of us burned last. I saw the edges curl before it vanished completely. For a moment, I felt nothing but silence. No guilt. Just release, the final confession. Morning came gray and hollow. I sat in the police station, the scent of smoke still clinging to my hair. An officer slid a cup of water toward me. Start from the beginning, he said gently. I told them everything. Mom, Kevin, the whispers, the lies. My voice stayed calm, steady. When they asked if I set the fire, I looked down and said, I wanted the truth gone, that's all. They exchanged a look I didn't try to read. Kevin didn't make it out. Mom did, barely. She was in the hospital, burned hands, quiet tears. They said she kept asking for me. Part of me wanted to go. The other part, the one that remembered the laughter between her and Dad, couldn't face what we'd become. When they released me on bail, I walked outside. The sky was covered in white ash that drifted like slow snowflakes. Every step felt lighter. People would call me crazy, maybe even dangerous. They'd never understand that sometimes truth costs too much to carry. In my apartment that night, I wrote a letter to the detective. Some wounds only heal when nothing is left to infect them. Then I sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker. I thought about my students, the way they trust me to guide them through hurt, and I wondered if redemption ever really existed, or if it just arrived, masked as consequence. Mom survived, but our home didn't. Neither did the secrets. They asked later if I regretted what I'd done. I told them truth tastes like smoke, and I'd rather choke on it than live in lies again. I closed this chapter knowing one thing. Fire purifies. It doesn't fix, doesn't heal, but it ends everything that needed ending. And for the first time in years, I finally feel free.